Thank you again for joining today. I'm really excited to present the relaunch of our resident portal. There's certain products that are just a lot of fun to demonstrate, so I'm going to be running this one on my own, but I do have a handful of my team members here to back me up that are going to answer questions live throughout the presentation. What we're going to cover is just an overall portal landscape, our experience with resident portals. I want to compare and contrast different third-party solutions versus MDS, and then talk about billing models, how we're flexible on that side of things, and how different models can change adoption rates with residents. I really want to spend most of my time in live product, and then we'll wrap it up with some upcoming feature releases. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump in. I thought it made a lot of sense to talk about our history with portals. We go really back to at least 2010 when we did our first integration with ClickPay. And that was 15 years ago, but the landscape back then was nobody wanted to accept credit cards for rent. People were very hesitant in New York even to accept payments online at all. But over the last 15 years, things have totally changed. I'd say that it's more common than not at this point for a property to accept payments electronically, and certainly to allow credit cards to be a form of payment that's accepted. That was a very common objection 15 years ago, but today it's just a given that it's a good thing to do. It's just giving your residents an additional option, and accepting a payment online is really the most efficient way for you to possibly process a payment. It's a beautiful thing when on the first of the month you can press a couple of buttons and the money from 50% of your residents is already in your bank accounts and applied to their accounts. It's a major efficiency. So we saw what ClickPay was doing. We saw which way the industry was going, and built and launched our own native resident portal to the self-hosted version of MDS Explorer. This is before we even had any kind of a SaaS remote edition system, because your core system at that point was not online. It was still like a third-party app because they had to communicate with each other. The resident portal was online, but your core system was hosted in your office. So it was like a third-party relationship with two different systems. We had a lot of success with that system, but over the course of 10 years, with anything like this, you have to make a decision of whether or not you're going to completely reinvest in it, or if it's time to look for a partnership. And in 2021, we made the decision that we were investing heavily in the creation of Spire, which many of you now have access to. And that was going to be the foundation of a new portal eventually, because it's totally online already. We wanted to have a native portal solution. But in the meantime, we knew we needed to fill a gap. So we partnered closely with Concierge Plus to create a system that, even though it's two different systems talking to each other, we really dove in headfirst to try to make the integration as good as it could possibly be. And we will continue to work with Concierge Plus. We still value them as a partner. And I just want to make clear that nobody's being forced to do anything here. If you're happy with your current provider in Concierge Plus, by all means, you can stick with them. But here we are in 2025, and we always knew that once our core SaaS online product was available, that the next logical thing to do was going to be to build a native resident portal into the system. So that's what we're going to show you today. And over this journey of 15 years, as you might imagine, we learned a ton, not only in developing our own system, but in frankly helping others develop their payment systems. Just some of the core lessons. The first thing is that a resident portal can be many things, but first and foremost, it is a payment system that has to be rock solid, and it has to reconcile down to the penny. That is absolutely critical. That is table stakes to get into the game. So that's where we are right now, and I'm going to show that to you. But some of the other things that are super important is that residents have to be able to use this thing without ever calling anybody, without ever running into any problems. We don't want to create more work on the customer service side of things by making a user interface that's just confusing and difficult to use. So we spent a lot of time making this as easy as possible, from initial registration through payments, through sending good, clear receipts to residents. We're just trying to think of every potential avenue to make this as easy to use as possible. I've already mentioned pricing, structure, flexibility to put the portal within anyone's reach. And then another big pain point for customers is the onboarding process. We knew we wanted to make this as easy as possible for our clients. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as I get into the live product as well. When you're talking about a third-party integration with any portal that's out there, really anything other than a native portal, there's all this different buckets of data that need to sync back and forth. And anytime that you have two different systems talking to each other, you have multiple points of failure, right? The internet can go down on one end or the other. A password can change on one end or the other. Somebody can do an update in one system or the other, which is not tested and compatible with the other system. It's more complicated than meets the eye, but when you really get into it, we're syncing resident unit data. We have a stop file that needs to be coming over, the payment files, the work orders. And now we start to get into report packages. We're going to talk about investor dashboards, and we don't want to sync that stuff. When you go into your portal, it is that you're looking directly at it from the native database. So there is no syncing. Everything is in real time. There's no delay, as opposed to different third-party integrations, which are typically nightly syncs. You might have something a little bit more than that, but for the most part, it's just not live real-time data. But with MDS, native solution, it certainly is. So again, interoperability, that's what they call two systems working and talking to each other. Those concerns totally vanish with a native solution. I've referred to flexible billing models a couple of times. We can give you the ability to have the option to pass some costs on to the residents. We also want to give you the option to spread the costs across different buildings, or to centralize everything underneath the property management company, and to make all that as easy as possible. And I'm going to talk about some things that we'll be able to do for you that there's just no way that any third party would be able to provide. So one thing we can say for sure is that if you're not using a portal, that manually processing a payment is by far the least efficient and most expensive way to do things. Now, that might not stick out to you with a big fat label on it in your income statements, but certainly paying somebody to manually handle paper and either scan checks or run them to the bank, there's real costs involved in that. Let's get into the fun stuff, which is the live portal demonstration. And we're going to start by logging in as a property manager or somebody in the property manager's office. You decide to launch the portal. What has to happen next? So I'm going to go ahead and log in. This is just the main Spire system, guys. So you do need access to Spire in order to use this portal, because it is the portal. They are one and the same in a lot of respects. Boarding is no fun. We've boarded people. We've helped people board on other systems. There's, with all these different banking regulations, there's always going to be a know your customer process that is involved. The payment processors are taking on some risk because they're giving you your money basically before it's even fully cleared out of the different residents' accounts. So there is real underwriting. There are real laws around know your customer type of stuff. We wanted to just minimize as much of that as possible. And I think we've been able to do that through the structure we've been able to agree with the back end low level payment processor. But just to cut to the chase here, once you have the resident portal turned on, this online payments column will now appear in your buildings list. In the past, even with our own portal, I'll use our own portal as an example, you would have to do a full underwriting on each and every one of your companies that was going to be accepting payments. So each and every bank account, essentially. What we've been able to make happen is that we're going to do a full underwriting process on one company of your choosing, which is typically the property management company. But once that is turned on and up and running, you're going to be able to turn on and off individual buildings with very, very little requirements. So it's not going to be a full underwriting process. It's going to be the bare minimum of what you need to provide to stay within all the different banking laws. So as we can see right here, we have two buildings that are turned on for online payments. So if I wanted to turn another one on, I would simply click this, and it's going to ask me if I want to start the process. Everything happens right through the user interface. You don't have to log into some other site. We connected all of this to the back end processor's underwriting capabilities. So again, we just want to try to make it as simple as possible. So once you are enabled for online payments and your different buildings are approved, the next step would be to do a full launch with your residents. This is almost doing double duty here in terms of demonstration, because we are using our core messenger capabilities that we can use to send out emails and text messages. That is what we're using to invite residents to the portal. So typically you're going to invite everybody, right? So that's what we'll do right here. Here's a list of all the different residents. I can filter it down through a variety of different things. Maybe I have status codes if I was sending some other generic type of a message. But this is a resident portal. I want to invite everybody. So I simply click all that off. I click bulk email. You do have flexibility in terms of who you'd like the email to come from. This can come from individual accounts, or you can set up just a master, like in our case, info@multidataservices.com. And because I don't want to have to write the same email over and over, or have to, even if it on each individual launch, I have a template here, and this can look any way you want. You can edit this right from here, but I'm going to just pull that up, and this is what it's going to do for me. It's going to fill all these different variables in. I'm going to click preview, and let's see what it's going to look like, right? So puts this really cool QR code in there. Somebody can scan that. It'll bring them right to their link. These are actually personalized links for each and every resident that's going to receive this. So I would click send now, and at that point, everybody's going to start receiving their registration emails. I'm going to not actually send that, but I will show you quickly what it looks like. I talked about before how it's really important to make this as dummy proof, if that's a thing, if that's possible, as possible. So this link is different for every resident, even though they don't know it. So when they click on it, it's pre-populating. It knows who they are. So the only thing that they're going to have to do is set up their username and password. And once that's done, they're in. It's a really simple registration process. That was really important to us because we have launched with other third parties where that hasn't been so easy to do. And we've had a lot of problems with it, caused a lot of tenant calls, stuff like that. We don't want any tenant calls, right? Nobody does. So we wanted to make this as easy as possible. You would launch this system-wide most likely, or for whatever buildings you could do it in one big shot. However, there are also going to be times where you get a new resident, right? So you get a new resident, they sign a new lease with you, and you already have the resident portal up and running. So you want to just invite one person at a time, right? So if you go down to what I'm looking at right now is the occupant file. You just pull up the right occupant. So at this point, you are able to grant access to as many different contacts within a unit as you would like. So by default, the ability to access the portal is turned on for your primary occupant, right? You have complete control over who has access or not. You can turn this on or off. Once they have no access, they can't get in anymore. But if you want to add a new contact, you can do that. And after you do, you then have the option to grant them access or not. And to invite them is super simple. You click on email, and it's really the same process. Who do you want to send it from? And what template would you like to use? You preview it, and you click send. They get that unique link. They pop in their username. They confirm their password, and they're in. It's really that easy. So now that we've invited our residents, we've boarded our system, let's go ahead and take a look at it from a resident's point of view. So security is top of mind. This thing has been penetration tested. We have two-factor authentication is turned on. So since I have both an email and a phone number on file, it's giving me the option to two-factor authenticate through either of those methods. I just got a text message on my phone on the phone number that's on file in the system. and that's allowing me to get in. So this is what it looks like from the resident's point of view. They land on this page. We spent a heck of a lot of time trying to make this as simple as possible. So what do you want to do here? If you're a resident, you land here, you see your payment activity. This is going to include payment activity, not just from within the portal, but it's also going to show you a complete history of your payments, even paper checks that have come through the office. Because again, we have complete access to all the data within this resident's account. So we're not displaying a whole bunch of different things here, but we can very easily expose anything you want. You want to show somebody's lease expiration here? We can do that. Do you want to list their contact information here and optionally give them the ability to update that information to sync back to your system? We can do that. So right there, we have access to everything. So let's go ahead and simply make a one-time payment. So you have different options here. I've already set up a couple of different payment accounts, but you can easily add more. We're going to allow residents to set up debit, credit, or just regular ACH bank account information. And we also are providing a breakdown of the charges here. So $6,800 breaks out into, it's all rent. It's from January and February, $3,400 and $3,400. And we're going to go ahead and let's just pay $100. Choose how you'd like to pay. Pay now. It's going to get a confirmation from you. We're getting confirmations all along the way. We're logging this stuff in case there's ever any kind of a dispute. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. Now, recurring payments is another option. When I click on that, you're able to see currently scheduled recurring payments. A resident can cancel one by clicking on the delete button right here. That's also available from the home page. When we're here, you can also see a scheduled payment for the future. You can delete it from there as well. When you set up a recurring payment, it's a little bit different than a one-time payment. A one-time payment is either going to be just a fixed amount or it's going to be the balance due. But here we could set up full balance due. We can set up a percentage of the balance due. So if let's say you have roommates, right? And you've granted access to 2 different roommates, each of them can sign up to pay 50% of the balance due on one of the first 5 days of the month. This is what we're limiting it to right now, but we can make this totally configurable per customer database. So if you wanted to allow payments to be scheduled for any day of the month, we could allow that, but just based on prior feedback and our experience, this is what most people wanted to do, is to limit it and not allow a payment on the 15th to come in late every month. So again, you're choosing what you want to do here. You're choosing your payment methodology and you're scheduling your payment. And again, this comes into our experience with portals. And I remember very distinctly having an issue with our original portal launch where residents were making double payments and we just couldn't figure out why. And it wasn't that the system wasn't working. It was purely a result of the user interface where people didn't realize that they already had a scheduled payment set up, or that they'd already submitted a one-time payment to be made. So these little things like this confirmation that's telling me, hey, you already have a scheduled payment set up. You sure you'd like to add more? This is the kind of thing that seems really simple, and it is, but it's very easy to overlook that type of a thing if you don't have the experience in this space. This is the core portal to start with. Really, the ante to get into the game here is a rock solid payment processing system. And that's what we've designed as the base of things. I'm going to log out of here. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint presentation. And I thought it was important to just talk about payment timing and flow. This is something that comes up a lot. And again, something that we spent a lot of time with our processor on. But basically, there's a cutoff time each day at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So any payment that gets submitted during a day up until that cutoff time will appear in your bank account the next afternoon. At the same time, there will be a corresponding cash receipts batch automatically created and appearing in your open batches screen. There is nothing for you to import. There's nothing for you to download. You don't have to do anything except go to cash receipts, and you'll see the batches very clearly marked as online payments waiting there for you. So depending on how you want your, this is, I said I was going to talk about this from the beginning a little bit later on. And this is something that there's no way that anybody else could do this for you because it's just not native solutions. There's going to be some kind of a monthly fee, right? And either the resident's picking up part of that. That just kind of happens in real time. Nothing for the property management company to think about there. But at the end of each month, after the invoices get tallied, either on the PMC level or the building level or some combination of that, those accounts will be automatically debited. What we can also do, and this is optional, but I think it will save you a lot of time, is that we can automatically create corresponding open vouchers with matched invoice images to correspond with all that invoicing, so that really all you have to do is select vouchers for payment and basically process them as hand checks, so that all of your reconciliation on that side of things is also done. Makes it really easy if you wanted to pass fees onto individual buildings to spread it out. It just couldn't be easier from that respect. I think it could be a really big time saver. So there's always more to talk about here, but we'd be happy to answer any questions. Now, there are some additional property manager tools available within the system. So we know that you want to be able to log in and see really all of the history of all the different online payments that have ever been made, and to be able to drill into the low level detail of those things. So when these transactions get processed by the processor, they're capturing all sorts of things: the expected settlement date, they have different trace numbers, this, that, and the other thing. You will never have to go into a separate portal to cross-reference against payments that were made online through your MDS resident portal. You can get to all of it directly through your regular Spire user interface. You are also able to review and maintain a real-time stop payment file from within the system. So if you have a resident portal, you probably have some kind of a stop file set up that's probably syncing one time nightly. This is real-time stop file, and you're able to manage it directly within MDS in a really transparent way. Then another thing that we know people want to be able to do is they want to be able to say, what percentage of my residents are paying me online? How much money am I collect for building 100 on the 5th of next month in an electronic way? What can I count on being in the bank on, the 6th? You're able to review all of that directly from within Spire as well. So now that we have the core of the system together, we have a pretty good idea of the other most commonly requested feature sets are. Some of this is more fun than others, but one of the things that we're working on right now is if an item does get reversed, it bounces, we will automatically create a cash receipts check reversal or bounce check batch so that you don't have to do anything manually. And that just keeps your reconciliations nice and clean. It's one less thing to worry about. Work order request is going to be short on the heels of that. We already have this to the Apple and the Google app stores so that the residents will be able to basically access everything that I just showed you, but through an app. And then Q1 of next year is when we're going to start to get into the owner and investor dashboard, which for some of you that used our original resident portal, and I'm sure most of you are probably using our system to generate monthly report packages, we had an option from the report packager to automatically upload those reports to the resident portal so that your different investors or shareholders or board members would, instead of getting an email or mailing it to them, they'd be able to log into their portal and retrieve their packages from there. We know people really like that, and that is super simple for us to now to re-enable. On top of that, what we're seeing are management companies that are creating their own management dashboards or investor dashboards. So yes, you can download your monthly report package, but you may also want to see all of the residents that are in arrears, and you might want to be able to drill into that. You might want to see how many open work orders there are across the portfolio. You might want to see how many open violations there are across the portfolio. If the data is in MDS, we can turn it into a clickable widget on a dashboard. So third-party managers, this is something that can really help when you're going in and you're trying to pitch a new business. It's going to be something that will separate you from the crowd. And then another thing that's on the Q1 roadmap is for those of you that are using e-renewals, we will allow residents at your option to renew directly through the portal. That's where we are today. This is what's roadmapped. A lot of this stuff is already being worked on, and by far the biggest lift is getting that initial payment system off the ground, and it is off the ground. Somebody at every customer's office received an email to sign up to actually pay MDS, because we use our own resident portal as a customer portal. So if you want to experience the portal almost through a resident's eyes, you can start making payments through the portal to MDS. So just to summarize things, there's just nothing like a native application. It eliminates multiple points of failure. There is no data syncing. There is no data syncing. It is the data that we're accessing. We tried to make the billing options really flexible to put this within reach of anybody. It's one-stop support, right? You have a question about the resident portal, about a payment, anything at all, you call our support team who you already know. And then lastly, since MDS is the system of record for each of your businesses, there's really just no limit on what we can do, what we can expose, what we can put into a dashboard. If the data is in MDS, and if you want to expose it to a resident, or if you want to expose it to an investor or a board member, it's really already at our fingertips. So that wraps up my presentation. Wanted to pick up fees, or if the property management companies absorb that. It depends on whether or not you turn on the investor dashboard or not. So we can work out pricing with each of you, but we're really, especially in the beginning here, we're trying to make this as easy as possible to get as many people boarded as quickly as possible. So we're being really aggressive with startup fees right now. But again, Eddie, Wendy, and Vicente are standing by, and they can work out some pricing for you. But we really are trying to find pricing that works. And we're cutting out another middleman as well here. So we are trying to be ultra competitive on this and to meet or beat any pricing that you're seeing right now.
Jennifer asked, would shareholders be able to upload documents like insurance docs?
It's a good idea. These are all things that are very possible. A feature like that, not yet, but I'm writing it down. And the way I would envision that, I thought about stuff like that, we talked about it as a team, is that it doesn't necessarily just need to be for insurance docs, right? We would build that where it's flexible, where you'd be able to define which types of information you're trying to collect, and allowing it to be submitted through the portal and automatically connected over to the resident's file. Let's keep the lines of communication open. I feel really, really confident in the product that we have launched here. This is the foundation of, it's really unlimited. If you guys have already had some good ideas that I've taken note of, and we're going to figure out where they fit onto the roadmap. But as you're speaking to your different account executives, don't be shy. We want to hear your ideas. And again, if there's something that would be exceptionally valuable to you, you'd say, yeah, what? That makes it a real no-brainer because I'm going to save so much time. Let's figure out what those things are. And we have a team of engineers waiting to build on top of this. Thank you all so much for attending. We will be doing another one of these just because we had really probably the best response we've ever had to a single invitation to a webinar. And we look forward to continuing down the road on this. So thanks, everybody. Bye.